In this video, we're going to look at the first step of the climate change vulnerability assessment, which is identifying climate change indicators. Developing a list of indicators will give you a starting point in identifying all the potential impacts to climate change in your area. You can approach the step by asking the question, what are all the potential impacts from climate change in South Africa? This should cover all key sectors in the country, such as agriculture, water, and human settlements. A list of climate change indicators have been developed through the Let's Respond Toolkit program by summarizing all the potential climate change impacts in South Africa. This list of indicators was developed using the Long-Term Adaptation Scenarios, or LTAS, reports, which have been developed by the Department of Environmental Affairs. This report is an example of a technical report that covers the potential risks and vulnerabilities from climate change of the human settlement sector in South Africa. These reports were developed for all major sectors in the country. There are reports for agriculture, biodiversity, human health, human settlements, water, and a range of cross-cutting issues like disaster management. Each of the LTAS reports provide a summary of the potential impacts from climate change for the sectors in South Africa and highlights some potential adaptation responses. These LTAS reports were summarized into a list of indicators for each sector. This table shows the indicators that have been developed for the human settlement sector as part of the Let's Respond Toolkit program. An example from this list is an indicator, Increased Impacts on Informal Dwellings. The indicator description states that informal dwellings and settlements that are often unplanned and without extensive services or infrastructure are vulnerable to climate change impacts. Another example in the human settlement sector is that there will be increased isolation of rural communities resulting from climate change, as roads are damaged and there are increased flooding and erosion. A set of indicators have been developed for you through the Let's Respond Toolkit program for the following sectors: agriculture, biodiversity and environment, coastal and marine, health, human settlements, and water. This list of indicators provides a starting point for all the possible climate change impacts that could be experienced in South Africa. It is important to note that indicator lists have been developed as a guideline and a starting point only. If you feel that they are not adequately reflecting your particular area, you are welcome to edit and to add to the indicator listed in the toolkit. The full list of indicators can be downloaded from the Let's Respond Toolkit website, and they are included in the Vulnerability Assessment Excel sheet. Throughout the Vulnerability Assessment video series, we will be referring to the Let's Respond Toolkit website containing useful resources, including the Vulnerability Assessment Excel sheet that you will use when completing the assessment for your area. You have now gone through the first step of the climate change vulnerability assessment, developing a list of all the potential climate change indicators. The next video will detail the second step in the vulnerability assessment, which is to determine whether or not you are exposed to the particular climate change indicator.